understand how to my plug talk.
We got to talk about the Arizona Cardinals and what happened this past weekend. The NFL draft started on Thursday, went through the weekend. Cardinals made a lot of moves. What was it, like 3 or 4 different trades we ended up making on draft day?
4 different trades. My goodness.
Holy smokes. And that was with the Titans, the Lions, help me out here, Cody.
Just read them off for the people, Tallman.
The first one was Houston.
There we go. That's the missing
link. That's the major one. We traded third pick and the 105th pick for the 12th, 33rd, and then a third round pick in 2024 and a first round pick in 2024. And then we also traded with the Lions again, and we gave them the 96th pick, and we got the 122nd, 139th, and 168th. So we traded the Lions twice.
All these trades, all these numbers are making my head spin. But it sounds like Austin Fort was wheeling and dealing. I was looking, Pro Football Focus gave us an A+ for this draft. And really, I'm really looking at the next year's draft for 2024, just like a stockpile of picks. 2 first rounds, a second round, 3 third round picks, 2 fourth rounds, and 2 fifth rounds. So I think we've all kind of been under the impression that we're not trying to be competitive this year. But with like a stockpile of rookies coming in over the next 2 seasons, does that really set us to be competitive in the immediate future if we're kind of in a rebuild, even though Jonathan Gannon doesn't want to call it that?
I love how they're still not putting their foot down in regard to that. I mean, let's call a spade, folks. This is not going to be a successful year for the Arizona Cardinals in regards to wins, especially after the moves that they make this past week. But they're doing the right things for the future. And as we have seen in the NFL game, rebuilds can go really quick. It just depends if you get the right personnel in, and they can be young. But you also have to remember about guys coming into the NFL, they're not like the NBA. It's not 17, 18-year-old kids. Some of these guys are 22, 23 years old and have been playing football for a very long time. So if they can come in and adapt to the NFL game and the speed real quick, you can find yourself in success. And obviously it's going to be predicated on what happens with Kyler Murray and his rehab and if he can come back to form. But, overall, I did like what they did this weekend in regard to the trades and stockpiling for 2024.
I think a little bit surprising given the way the offseason's been tracking. And like you said, they're not putting their foot down and acknowledging that it's definitely a rebuild year. I mean, even if you say it's just for 1 season, like, hey, Kyler's starting injured, we got to do what we got to do. But looking at the draft, Tallman, were you the one telling me that Kyler really wanted us to pick Paris Johnson Jr. in the first round?
Yeah, that was the guy that he said he really liked. It just so happened that was the guy they ended up taking in the first round after a whole series of trades and whatnot. But we sit here and say, oh my God, they took who Kyler wanted them to take. Are they listening to Kyler? Does he have a say? But he sat there for like the last 2 years and said, I like this guy. I like this guy. And they never drafted that guy that he said that he loved. So you can't sit there and say they're following what Kyler says because they haven't at all. He's came out and said, hey, I love this guy. I think he's awesome, blah, blah, blah. But they've never picked that guy before until this year right now. And honestly, Paris Johnson Jr., that's an incredible pick. So you can't go wrong with that. He might be a 10-year left tackle, franchise tackle. I mean, he immediately turns DJ Humphries into a bridge player. He's automatically the left tackle franchise player of the entire franchise. So outstanding pick.
Yeah, I mean, imposing force, 6'6", 310 pounds. And I like what you say there. Like, he could be a franchise tackle for us. And it's no surprise to me that Kyler Murray would want an offensive tackle, someone who's going to protect for him and be there in the long run. Mike, were you satisfied with that guy being our first round pick?
I loved it because it shows that their investment is in Kyler Murray. And we've seen what he's been having to go through the past couple of years, just running for his life. And with Paris Johnson, he's a consensus All-American. A lot of people had him as the top left tackle within the draft, but he did play extensively at guard. So you can put him in different places to start with his NFL career. I mean, DJ Humphries is getting up there, but he did just sign an extension not too far ago, and it'll be good mentorship to get him along. We could see Paris Johnson over on the right side at right tackle or at guard. And interchangeable guys for your offensive line is really what you need in this league, because those guys go down all the time, unfortunately. I mean, we've seen it over the past couple of years with Justin Pugh and Rodney Hudson. So to be safe and be able to trade back into that 6th pick, because he wasn't going to be there at 12, and to still get the capital that the Cardinals did, I'd say that was 2 thumbs up in my book.
I'll take it. And I mean, just looking at the rest of this draft, I'm probably going to botch his name. So guys, why don't you correct me if I do? But in the 2nd round with the 41st pick, we took the edge rusher BJ Ojulari from LSU.
Ojulari, yeah.
That's close enough. Yeah.
Right. And we, of course, we do a lot of talking and texting when we're not on cameras here. Because I kind of like you guys, but yeah, exactly. You were saying that you weren't a big fan because he's a little undersized for the
We're
position.
talking about a guy that's 6'2", what I said 248 is what he came in at. I mean, we're talking about a guy, granted, he's outside linebacker, so he might be within the range of that, but he's supposed to come in and fill that need to be someone that's going to rush the quarterback, and somebody that's undersized. When I saw it, he's a proven rusher. You know, he can rush the quarterback. That's what it is, but the size just scares me. And he's coming out and getting all these comparisons to A1 Hassan Reddick. And we're going to, okay, if that's going to be the comparison, and then we sit and go, okay, so who was the one person that could get the best out of Hassan Reddick? Oh, well, it turns out to be our head coach. You know, so Hassan Reddick was nobody on the Arizona Cardinals before he went to the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's getting all those comparisons with his position, with his size, with his play style. So if it can be that type of person, then this is going to be a fucking great pick. But I mean, I hate it. I hate that we're out here taking more linebackers. Granted, in the past, we took linebackers that do not rush the quarterback, but we're picking one that has a proven track record, and we're turning into it's going to be a 3-4 defense. We already know that. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be 3-4. We're going to have 4 linebackers on the field. Like, we know that with given this roster, and then with this pick right here, it just solidifies that. So it can be good. Does it give me a little worry? Did I want one of the defensive ends, a bigger guy, a 6'5" guy, a 280 guy? There's 2 of them that came off like 5-6 picks later after this guy, which I thought the Cardinals were going to get a defensive end, one of those guys, but they picked this dude. But hey, I mean, if he can be the next Hassan Reddick, whatever. If there's only one guy that can do it, it's going to be Gannon. So,
you know, Ojulari is a proven guy, like we've said, from LSU, and I love SEC products. Like, those are guys who go up against the best of the best week in, week out. I know he's undersized, but 16.5 sacks, 25.5 tackles for loss during his career at LSU. And he went up against some behemoths in the SEC at those tackle positions. And I think we also have to remember that linebackers are really different than what they used to be, especially within what kind of defense that you're playing. Guys can be listed as linebackers, but primarily will only come off the edge, like Hassan Reddick. So if we don't wait 4 years to finally put him into a position to be successful, this guy can come out and flourish early. He can help with speed for rushers off the edge. He can get to the quarterback quick. And with his continued motor and good hands, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy who can get double-digit sacks. I don't want to say every year, but, you know, close to that. And just like we're going to talk about with Garrett Williams from Syracuse coming in, Ojulari is going to have plenty of opportunity to get on the field and become one of the top pass rushers for this young team, with the losses of Zach Allen and the retirement of J.J. Watt. So I don't hate it, but I'm in between at the same time, right? Like you guys have said, you know, he's going to have an uphill battle for this NFL game, being undersized, but I think he has the speed to combat that.
That's fair enough. And that's an interesting point you bring up with Hassan Reddick really blossoming in Philadelphia, and Jonathan Gannon being that guy that kind of spurred that, if you will. But I share similar concerns. I mean, I don't know if linebacker was our most desperate need right now. I would have liked to see them maybe make a move to shore up the secondary. They did in the third round take Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. But again, Tallman, you pointed out some criticisms of this guy where he's coming off of what is it, an ACL injury?
He tore his ACL 6 months ago. So, okay, so if he did not tear his ACL 6 months ago, he'd be a top 60 pick. This is the special of we're we're not contending for anything next year, so we can give this guy a chance with the third round pick and see if he can come back, rehab, turn into the player that he used to be. Because we're talking about a really good player who's coming off a really bad injury. I mean, we know it. Our quarterback, our franchise quarterback, is coming off of a very similar injury. So this guy right now, 6 months ago, he had an ACL tear, and I mean, poor kid, man. I mean, he totally dropped in the draft. He would have been an outstanding prospect. He's a good player, but we're talking about a guy that's a major injury, is not going to be able to contribute to the team. He might even not be
Not
able
for
to
a
contribute
while.
for the whole next year.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a guy, we're looking out 2024, 2025. What can this guy turn into? So that's a value pick, and it just totally gives into the fact that this team is not competing for anything next year.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, Mike, I'll ask you, like, how do you weigh like the risk versus reward with a pick like that?
High risk, high reward. I mean, especially if a guy is going to have the opportunity to play early on, because this cornerback room is pretty weak still. And obviously, when you lose Byron Murphy, who was your top corner over the past 2 years, there's plenty of opportunities for him to step in. But I don't even know if he's going to be ready to start the season. Like Tallman said, 6 months ago, that's a quick turnaround. I know the season doesn't start until September, but that's just a lot of uphill battles and a lot of rehab to go through. But like Tallman said, once again, a guy who could have been picked in the second round does fall to 72, which isn't too far out of that.
Right.
He'll have ample opportunities. So I don't hate it.
And so looking at the rest of the picks we made in this draft, in the third round, we got wide receiver Michael Wilson out of Stanford. Fourth round, a guard, John Gaines, the second from UCLA. In the fifth, quarterback Clayton Tune from Houston. That one is a head scratcher for me. A little bit later in the fifth, a linebacker, Owen Papo out of Auburn. In the sixth round, Keitrell Clark, a cornerback out of Louisville. And then to end the draft in the sixth round, pick 213, a defensive tackle, Dante Stills out of West Virginia. Do you guys see any of these guys we drafted from 3 on being of any consequence to this team going forward?
Bad or good? Because I just have a lot of bad for this. Michael Wilson, bad pick. Terrible pick. We're talking about a guy that came out for his senior, whatever, pro day. He wowed the scouts. Oh my goodness. Bumped up his draft capital. But we're talking about a 6'2 receiver that's played only 14 games in the last 3 years. The last time he played an entire season, which was a college football season, mind you that, which they play 10 games, 11 games a season, maybe. That was in 2019. So we're talking about a guy that's coming to a game. It's faster. His opponents are stronger. I mean, he's not going to last. A guy that's injury prone, and we expect him to do anything? No, he's not going to do anything. So that was a really bad pick, I think. I want to sit here and say I hope he proves me wrong, but I don't expect somebody with such a bad injury past history coming into the NFL, which is a whole different beast. He's not going to do much for this team. I don't like that pick whatsoever. I do like the John Gaines pick. Solid late round guard pick. I mean, we're talking about a guy, he got Pac-12 honorable mention. I mean, he might be able to find a spot later in his career on this line. Right away, probably not going to have a lot of impact. Who knows? I mean, the way this team's going, they might throw out all the rookies because they're not paying anybody. We don't have anybody to start, right? But I think that's a good pick. Other than that, Clayton Tune.
It's just a head scratcher, man. I think we should just go off on it now because, like, you brought up a great point. Why are we bringing in a 6 foot whatever 4 pocket passer that really doesn't have it at all the play style that the Cardinals are going to have? this year when who was the quarter? I was trying to find it real quick. Who was the quarterback that was still on the board? Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who has a similar play style as Kyler in a sense, or at least the mobility Kyler has. Where
that was the guy. Yeah, I mean he's 2 inches tall, or excuse me, 3 inches taller than Kyler,
and that's not saying much.
Yeah, and then going into Clayton Tune real quick, he had a nice senior year. I had to pull off his stats, just give him a little bit of credit. 67 completion percentage, 4,074 passing yards, 40 passing touchdowns, 10 picks. He led the team in rushing, 544 yards, and then 5 rushing touchdowns. So the kid can run the ball. He's mobile. Can he sling a little bit? It looks like it, but he's in a lower conference, so he's not going up great competition. So can he ball? Yeah. Is he the same style that this team needs to create, as in style of what we're looking for to when Kyler Murray comes back? No, he's not. Is he like similar to a Colt McCoy? Yeah. So what you're saying with the Dorian Thompson-Robinson, what you're saying with that is he's more of a mobile quarterback, throws on the run, scrambles. He could be somebody that we could have in practice where this team as a collective, the number one unit, could be having him come in and be that fake Kyler Murray while Kyler Murray, the real one, is still rehabbing. And this coaching staff could learn how to call plays, how they can style up a fucking game plan to figure out what's going to happen when he comes back. So say this is totally crazy. What if we're 4? So he comes back week 9, and say we're 4-4. We're 500 on the season. Kyler Murray comes back. How the hell are they going to know how to call the game? No one's going to know what's going to happen. And maybe I'm dumb saying this, that they should have taken Dorian, but maybe there's some football guy out there that's like, no, you're stupid. Like that, there's no way that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, come on, he could sit in there and they could literally stylize all these plays and get it together about how they're going to prepare for when Kyler comes back. Like, is that wrong? Do you guys agree with that?
It makes sense to me. I mean, admittedly, I don't know too much about either quarterback, but I know they went back to back in this draft. So skill wise, they can't be too far off. And like you said, playing for Houston and in a not quite as a competitive conference, everything was schemed up for him on a silver platter. Whereas, is he going to be able to be flexible to learn the NFL game? And for what? We already have a franchise quarterback. So what's his role going to be on this team?
Maybe they were just looking for a change of pace. But then the overall theme, which they don't want to admit once again, maybe we're just punting on this season. So they don't want to give away schemes or what that brand new offense will be once Kyler Murray does come back. You know, they'll have tape towards the end of the season, but then in 2024, this is going to be another retooled team. So everything's going to be different. But maybe it was more so this pick was just a legacy pick, because I don't know if you guys know this, but Clayton Tune is the great-great-nephew of the team's first ever draft pick. Oh. Jim Lawrence was the 5th overall pick in 1936. So maybe they were just looking at legacy. The same way that Paris Johnson, his dad was drafted by the Cardinals in 1999. So maybe they were just looking for legacy this season.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it is going to be interesting to see how this team does, this season. I think there's a lot of question marks, and rightfully so. But for all the flack we've gotten Monty Austin for, I feel like he did kind of make it up a little bit. He went out and got Paris Johnson Jr. We'll see how BJ proves himself. And then, like we said, stocking up for the 2024 draft. I have no idea what that draft class looks like. It may be too even early for the experts to tell, but there's always a fresh batch of talent coming out of college, and I don't expect anything to be different next year. And who knows, he might do 3 or 4 trades next season too, and we might just be hella stocked for 2025. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely going to be tracking that as we move forward here.